TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot Interview Series, and it is an honor to be joined by a true legend of the game, Bill Irwin. Welcome to the shoot interview.
A legend. I don't know. I've been called a lot of things. I don't know if it's ever been a legend, though, but we'll go with it. All right.
Excellent. The first question we ask everybody is, how did you get started into wrestling?
Oh, God. My brother, Scott, Scott Irwin, he started through Vern Gagne. He played football for the University of Minnesota and was down there for 4 years. And then at the end of it, he had met Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne. And, he didn't want to go play any more football, so they said, well, go talk to, maybe you'll be a wrestler. Go talk to, Vern Gagne, who's an M-man, if you will, a graduate of University of Minnesota. And he went over there and talked to him. And then he went through the camp that Cosgrove Viserys ran for Vern, and of course Buck Zumhoff came through, Richard Blood, who's Steamboat, and Jay. There was a Jan Nelson who died in a car wreck, and there was another guy that came through. I can't remember his name, but he got in. And then when I finished up with the college that I was going to, Scott was down in Charlotte working for the Crockett's, and he just said, well, come on down, get out of Duluth, and just come on down for a while. And 20 years later, I moved home.
Well, was the training more difficult than you thought it would be?
Yeah, the first days I was down there, here I am, lily white boy Yank from northern Minnesota where it never gets hot. I go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and you start training with Ric Flair. Well, the first thing you're doing is, squats. Flair, I don't know if you know Flair's training regimen or not, but he does 500 squats like every morning and, all kinds of workouts. And so first thing we were doing was sit-ups and squats in the sun in Charlotte. Well,
wow.
My legs went to rubber, I almost fell over, had to go in the house and puke in his bathroom. Yeah, it was a lot more. But I didn't go down to become a wrestler. I never went to become a wrestler. I just went down to, hang around with my brother for a while and see what's going on. Just, I'd come out of college and didn't know what I was going to do, so I went down there and they corrupted me.
What was the kayfabe like back then for a young guy?
Oh, it was real strong.
Yeah.
It was real strong. You couldn't be seen talking to anybody. If you, I used to drive the guys, and if you drove somebody, you weren't seen talking to any of the other wrestlers on the other side. I don't know, if I used to drive Blackjack Mulligan or Ric Flair around, as their driver. Well, you weren't seen hanging with their driver or their people, even though you weren't really involved. That wasn't done.
Do you have any good road stories about driving Mulligan and Flair?
Oh God, other than nothing too racy. Really, Flair. I remember driving him once, and I had to drive his Lincoln Mark V or something. And, he had to drive 100 miles an hour, but nothing too racy there. I guess the one thing I do remember one time was driving. What was his name? Not Blackjack. Oh, he was from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Big guy.
Crusher Blackwell?
Crusher Blackwell had a van. And I was the driver, and we were late because they had all wanted to stop. And they said, oh, you can't be late, you can't be late. Well, I scared them all. I drove so damn fast and just missed cars going by them and stuff, But it was always something, something crazy. But other than that, no, nothing too bad.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I do remember I drove Mulligan one time, and he was working with Andre the Giant. And Mulligan was a big guy. I don't know if you ever met the old man Mulligan. Well, he was big. And I remember him telling me, he said, when Andre the Giant says, boss, let's go home, you go home, because if he wanted to, he'd pick me up, meaning Mulligan, and he'd throw me to the fifth row. And that was a big guy, and so you knew that. It lets you know right there where Andre was,
When you and your brother started tagging together, who more or less was the captain of calling the matches, or was it pretty equal with the two of you?
Well, by the time Scott and I got together, Scott had obviously been in longer than I had, but when we got together and started doing stuff, I want to say I had a little bit more of the creative ideas of making it all work. He was more of he could do all the high spots and stuff, but he would want to, really smash and bang.
Yeah.
Whereas I did a little bit more of, the theatrical bullshit, a run and chase and, some spots. And I didn't have to be a dominant one out there. I was one more that was into whatever it takes to make the match work.
Yeah.
I don't care. It didn't matter to me. So, I don't know. It was pretty much even, but, as far as the creative stuff, if there was ever anything being done, it was me. Then once the summer ended in, it was like September or something, we came back down into Duluth. And then I went on to Texas. And Scott was sick. So he, I think he picked up his bike out in Charlotte and drove it up to Minnesota. It took a long way around and stuff, but eventually, that was pretty much the end for him. He died in '87. He got a cancerous brain tumor that had started to develop up in Montreal. He started thinking his leg was, like he had like his back was out or something, had his nerve and his leg was bothering him. So he kept thinking it was a chiropractor. And they sent him from a chiropractor to a doctor, to a surgeon, to a brain surgeon, and ended up he had a cancerous brain tumor. And he died a year and a half later in '87.
Wow. I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been for you, because you guys were closer than most brothers. You guys were together 24/7.
Well, yeah, we traveled on the road a lot, and it was difficult. It was. He stayed up in Duluth, and I went to Texas. Of course, then when we were down there, we found out that he was going to be, he was ill. There was going to be a problem. So yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. Working from. We were talking before the interview about some of the interviews that we've come across online. You and your brother from Georgia and places like that, and you were one of the best promo guys back in the day. How did you develop your promo style?
Oh Lord, I don't know how you'd say you developed it.
Yeah.
All you knew is that you had to go out there and you had to, you had certain things that you wanted to get over. You wanted to get over a character. It's like when I first got in the ring, you'd get in there and they wouldn't ever let you do nothing, right? And I remember one time I got in the ring with, another guy my age or maybe a little bit more, and I grabbed a headlock and I said, "Shoot me off." So he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so when you get in front of the camera there and it's your time, wow, you can't go out there and go, "Geez, I don't think Tommy Rich is a very nice guy." You're going to have to put some charisma into it, and you got to do something to make the people watch, and you can't just stand around, because if you do, they're going to, hello, goodbye.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to, have something to it. And so it kind of just all flows, no matter who you are and no matter what gimmick that any particular person's watching, what that person's giving you as the character, it is a small part of that character, whatever it might be, is a small part of that person. He's not going to be able to give it to you unless it is a small part of him, because he's not going to know how to do it. So what you see some of the times is what you get. Other times it's just a small part of them. But really, somewhere in there is a small part that's them.
Yeah.
And Scott and I, brothers, and Rand and Raven, and played hockey and football and stuff together. That was us.
Yeah.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.